guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk about something that keeps coming up. I was planning on doing a different video entirely today about something in the garden, but we'll push that off to another day. This keeps coming up, and so I figured I'd address it because it's obviously something people don't know and are curious about. And that is butchering in the summertime. Now, before we get into that, it's oftentimes come up in my mind and in other people's minds as well. You know, they think about doing something on their homestead and they're like, man, how do we do this? How do we do that? How do we accomplish this task? And oftentimes the answer can be easily found by just asking the question, how did people do this 100 years ago? How did people do this 200 years ago? And that usually comes up with an answer, or an answer that you can then modify to fix for or adapt to whatever circumstance you're in based on, you know, being in the modern age. So, that being said, how do we do butchering in the summertime? So a lot of people, my consulting business has actually been doing really well. I've got a number of appointments lined up. I got other people interested. I've been doing appointments now for the last few months, and people are, you know, seem to be getting a lot out of it. And we're helping a lot of homesteads, some of them who are in very dire need or in some sketchy circumstances. So all that to say, it's doing well, but a lot of people have been asking me because they know I've done in the past some butchering classes here on the homestead and even butchering classes in other places. And so they ask me, Zach, can we come out and do butchering classes? We'll pay you to show us. Or they'll ask me to come out to their place. You know, they'll provide the animals and they'll pay me to show them how to butcher. And I tell people, yeah, okay, that's a possibility. However, it's going to have to be in the fall. Fall and winter, spring, you know, okay. But fall and winter is usually when I do that. I do most of my butchering. But I still keep getting questions that come up. Zach, can we work something out maybe in the next month? It's July, or soon will be. July. It's hot. It's summertime. We're getting close to those dog days of summer. No, you don't do butchering in the summertime. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that that's never been done. I have a number of books on my shelves, the Foxfire books and a whole bunch of others. These are really helpful books when you learn about certain things. You know, those are great ways to dive into the past and see how people used to do things in the old times, how the old timers used to do things. And if you look back in the past, people did butchering traditionally in the winter time or in the fall. That's when hunting season is. That's when you're going to be doing your butchering. Now, there was times, you know, when you had to maybe butcher an animal in the summer or, you know, in warmer temperatures. But that was often not the case, and usually people shied away from that. Why? Because back 100 years ago, people didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have vacuum packaging. They didn't have ways to keep bacteria growth at bay when butchering was going to be done. A lot of butchers today, they'll butcher. In fact, the guy I buy my beef from, he's a grass-fed beef producer, you know, only, you know, very, very much sustainable when it comes to sustainable growth when it comes to his animals. But he butchers year round because he has a facility where he can keep the temperatures down to 45 degrees all the time and, you know, butcher his animals in there, and there's no, you know, bad stuff that can happen. And not only that, but it's like you butcher an animal right now, you are going to be fighting off all the flies and the insects that are going to be drawn immediately to that dead animal hanging in the environment. And so you don't want to have to deal with that. You don't have to deal with all the flies everywhere. This is why, there's bugs flying around me now. It's like they're everywhere this time of year, so it's not a good time or a good environment to butcher an animal. There will be blood. And so you just don't want to deal with that. Anyway, all that to say, my point being is a little bit of a history lesson. So most of the world celebrates, I'd say most of the Western world celebrates an event called Carnival every single year. Carnival. It's celebrated in the spring or at the very beginning of spring as spring starts to dawn. I think the first Well, we know it as Mardi Gras. We know it as Mardi Gras here in the United States, but the rest of the world calls it Carnival. And it starts really around February. Sometimes actually the very beginning stages of it will start actually after January 1st, because right around that time, December 25th, which is what we today call Christmas, the sun starts to rise again, because December 21st was the lowest point in the sky that the sun would get if you were in the northern hemisphere. And so from that point on, the sun starts to rise again. Every day it gets a little bit higher in that sky. And so that's when the celebrations begin, because it's a return to warmer temperatures. It's a return of spring. It's a return of life. Everything in the forest is dead. There's nothing green except evergreen trees, which we can go down a whole rabbit trail on that. And why people celebrate, oh, Christmas tree, the evergreen tree. Anyway, all that to say, I don't want to make a whole bunch of people mad today. I'm just trying to give you a reason of why we don't butcher in the summertime and spring. I mean, early spring is fine, but later spring and summer, no, we don't do that. Early fall, not really. Fall and winter is when you butcher your animals. Your world is your refrigerator at this point. Carnival, which the rest of the world, Western world, celebrates, means farewell to meat. Vol, farewell. Carni, meat. Farewell to meat. Carnival. In the United States, it became known as Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras means Fat Tuesday. And so you had this tradition that got started by the Catholic Church, because the rest of the world, the pagans around the rest of the world, as they were trying to institute Christianity, well, they're giving up meat anyway. They have this carnival celebration. They have all these celebrations, getting ready towards spring, or the spring equinox, when the sun returns and life returns. It's a fertility festival. So at that point, well, the Catholic Church says, well, they're giving up meat anyway. Why don't we just institute a religious practice that's not found anywhere in your Bible to basically bring on spring, bring on Easter. So all that to say, the pagans, the rest of the world, was giving up meat, carnival, and so they instituted religious practices into that. So why did they give up meat? Because there was no more fresh meat. No more fresh meat. Because you don't butcher in the summertime. Too much flies. It can make people sick. And so you butchered your fresh meat in the fall and winter. Fresh meat meant, or fall and winter, the coming of fall and winter meant fresh meat. And it was something you gave up. Unless you had some, you're not going to have fresh meat anymore. Everyone loves fresh meat. But you would smoke meat, you would cure meat, you would do all these different things to meat in order to be able to have a little bit of meat during the rest of your year, into spring and into summer and all that. I hope that makes sense. But it was the end of fresh meat. Springtime meant the end of fresh meat, and so you had to wait until next fall in order to get it. That's why we butcher in the fall. Or start butchering in the fall. And that's why we continue butchering in the wintertime. Because right now, it's just not an environment that's conducive to slaughter. It's not an environment that's conducive to, processing your animals that you've spent all this time growing. You do that a certain time of the year. And again, you can see these things. I have an ant in my Crocs shoe. I'm walking out here in my Crocs, but these black ants, they find their ways in the holes of my Crocs. Anyway, all that to say, forget all that. Distraction, squirrel. That's why we butcher in the winter and the fall. So if you have questions, comments, yes, I may make myself available. I don't do a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time in my hands. And so I'm really trying to make my time available to people who need consulting, who I can make trips out to their homesteads and give them some pointers and things, and how basically develop an action item report for them on things they can use for short-term goals and then long-term goals for their homesteads. I will be doing maybe this fall and winter 1 or 2 butchering classes or butchering events where I'll come out and give classes on some places, but I'm not going to do a lot. So I'm sorry. I've already agreed to a couple, and that's probably going to be it. Sorry. I have some great videos over at patreon.com where you can click down the link below and you go to my little collections tab, okay? And in that collections tab is some butchering videos where I show you guys how we butchered a cow last winter time out at a farm over in Oklahoma, okay? And me and another guy and my kids helped, and we basically butchered 3 miniature cows, okay, in one day. I think we were done by around noonish or something like that. There's another ant in my other crock. They just love getting into those crock holes. Anyway, all that to say, you can find that video. Link in the description below, patreon.com/An American Homestead. Link is below. Go to the collections and find that butchering tab and watch me butcher a cow. Okay, we butcher. I give you step-by-step instructions on how we take it apart, and there's other butchering videos in there as well where we talk about certain things if you're interested. The most valuable skill, I have said this often on my channel, and I will keep saying it, the most valuable skill you will ever have as a homesteader is the ability to butcher and process your own animals. A butcher will never know hunger. Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? A butcher will never know hunger. It is the most valuable skill you will ever have. So learn it. Okay, learn it and know it. Do it many times so that you know it like the back of your hands. I can basically take an animal apart by the time I shoot that animal and the time that thing is in the freezer, it's an hour, hour and a half tops. It's in freezer camp. So it doesn't take a long time. All right, guys, what do you think? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, get some of those books, those old books, the Foxfire books, and some of those other books you can find at yard sales and old libraries and things like that, bookstores, and learn the old ways and see how people used to do things. Check out our merchandise over at teespring.com. You can find our Stupid Shit Hurt shirt. If we had more hurt in this world, we'd have an awful, awful lot less people buying their food through the drive-thrus. They'd be home butchering their animals and putting that food in the freezers because they're not stupid. See you next time in the homestead. Bye. One of the best perks about living off-grid is that I never pay an electric bill. I love being my own power company, but that means when things go wrong, I have to be the one on call. So I try and use reliable components for my power production. For the last couple of years, I've been promoting Oupes solar generators. I've been using them and abusing them, and as it turns out, they are pretty good products. They have power generators for all occasions, and they can be charged by permanent or portable solar panels, as well as AC power. They offer true lithium iron phosphate batteries, and this is important. Recently, a family in my area had a different brand that uses the less stable nickel manganese cobalt or NMC type batteries. The unit caught fire in the middle of the night. It was a scary situation and it caused damage to the home, but thankfully nobody was hurt. The generator, as you can see, was a total loss. This drives home the point on why it's so important to employ solar generators like the Oupes brand that uses the much more safe and stable technology of lithium iron phosphate, otherwise called LiFePO4. They offer small generators for travel or for powering an entire home and everything in between. These are great backups to have in a medical emergency or to power a freezer full of your favorite meat products, or as I have shown in past videos, for even backup AC and DC power sources for ham radio communications. If the grid goes down, you're going to be thankful you have one of these units. You can find the link in the description of this video or click on the banner ad found on the front page of our website, anamericanhomestead.com. Right here. That banner ad right there on anamericanhomestead.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of An American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.